You are listening to the Way of the Shaman podcast with your host, Carrie Hoosman. The content shared in the Way of the Shaman podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional or therapeutic advice. The views expressed by the host and interviewees reflect their personal experiences and opinions. Please consult with an appropriate licensed professional if you have any medical, psychological, or legal concerns.
Hello, and welcome to the Way of the Shaman podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Hoosman, and today, Narrye Caldwell is joining us. We're going to be talking about shamanic extraction healing training, the in-person workshop today, as well as her experiences coming to core shamanism. Welcome, Narrye.
Thank you very much, Carrie. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. Narrye has taught all the workshops in person and virtually and continues to offer those, and it's such a delight to have her. And it's been a delight personally for me to take workshops with her.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how core shamanism, and specifically Michael Harner's work, found you.
Well, Carrie, that's a remarkable story, I think, and it comes in two parts. The first part is something I've actually never talked about publicly, and I decided now's the time. So this is kind of the prequel to everything that happened afterwards. And this is a dream that I had, starting at about the age of 6 or 5 or 6, somewhere in there. I had a recurring dream. It was a nightmare for me at that time because I didn't understand what it was about. But in this dream, I'm walking up the staircase in our old home in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And when you looked over the banister of that staircase, you could see the hallway below. And in the dream, I looked down, and there's a great big hole in the floor in that hallway. And out of that hole emerges a giant python that begins to slither up the stairs at me, and I, of course, am terrified of being wrapped up and strangled and smothered and all of that stuff. And of course, like what happens in dreams, you can't move.
Right.
I couldn't move, and I'm screaming, and finally the snake reaches me and begins to wrap around me. Of course, I wake up screaming. Well, this dream came back repeatedly throughout my childhood. And what's very strange about it now to me is that I never told a soul. You'd think a little kid would run to their parents or something like that, right?
Right.
Yeah. But there was something in me that knew in a very childlike and innocent way that this was not for anybody else to know about. So I just hung in there and bore up, and and eventually it left. The dream left, but not until I was about a teenager, right? And then I go on with my life. I just go on with my life and go to college, and I get married. I have a family. I do all these things. I got into Chinese medicine and was just beginning a clinical practice in Chinese medicine. And one night, the dream came back. By this time, I'm in my early 40s.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I was shocked, but it came back in a slightly different version. And in this version, this is the fun part. I'm standing on a little bridge, and in the distance, there's a little cottage, a really attractive little rustic cottage. And there's a wooden sign over the cottage door that says, "Apothecary." Now, I'm studying herbalism.
Right.
In Chinese medicine, and I look at that and I go, oh, that's what I want. I want that medicine. I want to go there. And the minute I start to cross and approach the cottage, the front door gets flung open and the snake comes out. And this time it's a little smaller, but it's flying in the air at me.
Oh, wow.
And my first response was like a 6-year-old. I was like terrified. And
of course.
And then something happened. And this is it turned into a little bit of a lucid dream because I got mad. And so as it approached in the air, I reached out and I grabbed it in the dream and I shook it really hard. I was really angry. And I said, "What do you want from me?" And at that moment, this snake got this big grin on its face. Very kind, very loving. And it said, "I'm not what you think I am." And then I woke up and something really had changed for me there. Now, this was years before I discovered shamanism. Clearly, I learned later that it was a very shamanic dream. It was just out of time, and I grew up in a family. Had I been living in any kind of traditional or indigenous culture, there would have been elders around me who would have explained all this to me, but that was not my childhood. So the timing was off. But it came back when it knew maybe I was open in a very different form. And it was actually years before I figured all this out. But what it did was it got me involved. At the same time, I was involved in my traditional Chinese medical practice and really enjoying that. It's beautiful medicine. But I also was getting involved in Carl Jung's work. Okay. So that work, I should just plunge ahead with this, because what I decided, I was at a place in my Chinese medical practice where something was missing. Something was missing. And a little bit of a sidebar here is that Chinese medicine has deep roots in shamanic cultures, very deep sources in shamanism. All of that, the spiritual side of the medicine, was pretty much stripped out of it.
When it was brought...
Yeah, when it was brought to the West, and even in China, during the Cultural Revolution in the 60s in China, it became illegal to do things like, for instance, study the I Ching, which is the great book of divination and magic and sorcery and spiritual practices. From thousands of years ago. It was illegal to study that book. And people who got caught having private study groups, secret study groups, were put in jail for sometimes decades. So there was this whole repression of a lot of the spiritual aspects of the medicine. But I sensed that it was there. And because I originally came from traditional Chinese Kung Fu and martial arts and was still practicing that. It's interesting that that's where those old spiritual practices still lived, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of the Qigongs were shamanic activities. They were ways of merging with animals and things like that. So I knew it was there, but I couldn't quite access it. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll continue with the study of depth psychology, which was really intriguing to me, and then I'll kind of blend that in, and I'll have a spiritual way in with my clients, So little did I know. So I was accepted to a program that had a 2-year master's program in depth psychology, and the semester started, and this is the miracle part of the story. They said, "Well, we're going to start the semester with a 5-day retreat in Santa Fe." I said, "Fine, that sounds great." Off I go. I didn't even look at the curriculum. I just went. And I walk in, the very first night I walked in and meet my cohort there. And they're all sitting in a circle on the floor. I'm like, this is fine. This is cool. I grew up in a Quaker community. I can do this, right? Yes, I sit down. And the teacher pulls out a buffalo drum, a one-sided shamanic drum, and begins to drum. Boom, 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 like this. And I burst into tears. I had no idea what the heck was happening to me. I'm here to go to school, right? I burst into tears. And so I kind of pulled myself together. And then the teacher says, "Well, the first thing we're going to do here as part of this 5-day retreat is I'm going to teach you to journey." So it turned out this whole 5 days was, this person had studied with Michael and taught us to journey. And And the whole thing was an introduction to core shamanism, much to my surprise. I never heard of shamanism in the West like this.
Wow.
So I my very first journey, I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, well, okay, I can follow directions. I'm good at following directions. So off I go. And I went, it was Journey to the Lower World. A lot of people listening to this know about this journey to the lower world. And down I go, and I'm earnest in my, I want to do this right, get a good grade. So down I go. I kind of like stumbled into this new world, and I remember looking around and going, whoa, I'm definitely in a new place. So I went, that's good. They told me to do that, so that's good. So I said, oh, I'm supposed to look for an animal. So the moment I had that thought, this animal is in front of me, big eyes right in front of me. And I'm like, oh, this is very real. And so I went, well, what do I do now? Oh, I'm supposed to ask the animal a question. So I said, how do I know when I'm on the right path in my life?
Great question.
The minute I asked that question, my heart, in ordinary reality, my heart just melted, like you're falling in love, like that feeling of your heart just getting warm and expanding. It was a physical feeling. And the animal said to me, do you feel that? And I said, yes, I do. And the animal said, that's how you know. That changed my life.
Wow.
That was a game changer. So I came back from that retreat, and I withdrew from the master's program in death psychology. And what a roundabout way the spirits took to get me there, It was
right.
amazing. And then I went straight to the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, because I had asked this person, where did you learn this? And she said, you go to the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. So I just took everything the foundation offered. And when I finished taking everything, I took it again. That's what we do, right?
Right.
Because you can't step into the same river twice. So every time you take another workshop that you may have done multiple times, do it again. It'll be different.
Deepens your experience.
Exactly.
Grows your relationships, builds new ones.
Exactly, right? So that was my kind of crazy... in hindsight, it brought me deep understanding of all of these threads that we all have in our lives that seem to be unrelated in some way, and we just stumble along, and I don't know what that was about, but that was then, this is now, and now. They all, the beautiful thing about getting older as I am is you can look back in hindsight and you see the weaving.
Right.
They're making a weaving of your life where it's all connected. Yeah.
Beautiful. So it certainly sounds like your experience with traditional Chinese medicine in some ways prepared you for core shamanism.
Yeah.
And you still have your own practice. I mean, even if you're not, I don't know that you're doing TCM as a practitioner for others anymore, or are you?
No, I'm not. But here's the thing. You're right. Let me back up, because that experience, that immersion in Chinese medicine, did set me up for this kind of. I was really open to this new worldview. Chinese medicine was the first time I encountered a system of life, basically. It's a medical system, but it's a life system that is a different worldview from the Western mechanical worldview that we tend to have in this culture, where things are seen as more machine-like. If there's a broken part, you take it out and replace it, or you fix it, or something like that. The worldview that Chinese medicine provides, and also I think is very similar to the shamanic worldview, is that everything in life is related and interdependent, and that being well and thriving, the whole thing has to be well and thriving, right? All of it. And so instead of treating disease in Chinese medicine, we would treat a pattern of imbalance. Mm-hmm. So you had to figure out, how did this person get separated from nature and the cosmos and the natural cycle of things and life? How did they get separated from that? What's the pattern of imbalance there that we can address? And then you use herbs and lifestyle and qigong and needles, all these things to bring that person into this web of life again. So being immersed in that, I call it the web worldview, really set me up for the shamanic worldview, which of course, and I refer people to the wonderful workshop that's online called the Shamanic Worldview. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful workshop because it really immerses you experientially in this worldview that everything is alive. Everything is alive. And once you have that experience and connect with that worldview, it changes how you walk in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To know that your mug has a spirit.
Yes.
And potentially has an opinion.
Yes. I can tell you my car has an opinion for sure. Yeah. So it really changes, and so the plant, I mean, like right now I have a tree out on my back patio, and I look at it every day and it looks like it might be dying. It keeps, the branches keep turning, and I trim it and try to trim off the dead branches, and then some new dead branch arises. And I'm like, this is affecting me. It's affecting my home and the well-being of all of us that live near that tree. And I know that I have to figure that out in order for everything here to thrive. But that's a different worldview, isn't it? From, So we pay attention to everybody's well-being, everybody's and everything. It's important. It changes you. It gives you compassion. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Narrye.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a little bit about what it's like to be, because you've taught so many workshops, residentials included. As a faculty member, what do you feel has been most rewarding about teaching shamanic practices to others?
I love that question, Carrie. Thank you for asking that, because I love to teach. I love to teach. It's my jam. It's what gives me joy, and what an honor, what a privilege to be able to do something you love so much in your life as your primary work in life. So yes, and I see teaching as a form of witnessing. I like to think of it that way. It's a form of witnessing. So I see my job as I need to make sure that I create a container for the people who are making themselves vulnerable to learn this new thing, and to some of them it's a very strange new thing. So they're vulnerable. I need to create a container for them to feel safe. And then I need to communicate methodology really clearly. And once they have that methodology, they feel comfortable and safe, then they can have their own exploration. And it is such a cool thing to see them discover for themselves these other worlds. It's just amazing. And they light up, and they get excited. And even when they're frustrated, it's okay, because they know they have what it takes to work through that on their own, right? So that's really what lights me up about teaching. I just can't get over that. It doesn't matter what workshop it is. It's always going on, constantly, Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm sure you've had that experience too.
Absolutely. It's, and sometimes your job as a faculty member, as far as that container, is helping people understand we leave other trainings aside.
Absolutely.
We're not bringing in other types of trainings when we're doing this work. But, all that ethical training that you've had, because so many people who are drawn to this have other trainings, right? And they may be bringing in something from the medical practice or a therapeutic practice or a acupuncture practice or a massage practice. So they've all had those trainings, and those are important. But they're setting aside those modalities, not the ethics, not the understandings, but the modalities they're setting aside to really look at this as what it is a complete modality that is separate and unique.
Right. Absolutely. That's so important. And I mean, I have, for instance, you asked this earlier, I didn't really directly answer you, but I have laid down my clinical practice. I actually gave up my license to practice acupuncture. It was a huge deal. But I still carry that because I continue to teach martial arts and you know, I continue to do pole star astrology, which is a Chinese form of astrology. These things. But you're right. It's really important to not only yourself as a teacher to keep that stuff out of the room, so people have the freedom to experience the power of this work as it is, without being mixed up with other, in its pure form, without being mixed up with other things. That's why. It's not because we don't like that other stuff. There's lots of cool and wonderful practices out there. I'm so grateful for them, you know, and I respect all of them. But if you want to be clear about what core shamanism offers, you're right. You need to keep it really clean and not mix it with other things, because then you don't know what the heck is working.
Right. Right.
You know. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So we're going to shift a little bit now into starting to talk about extraction.
Yes.
And so for those who are unfamiliar, Narrye, can you tell us a little bit about what extraction is in the context of shamanic healing?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys here and let you know that extraction healing was one of the hardest things for me to feel confident about. I mean, I got the methodology right off. I got that. But feeling confident about it, that's a whole nother story. So I'm really happy to talk about it now because I finally did work through that with the help of my spirits. Right. That's what it takes. Sorry, I got to adjust this. That's what it takes. So extraction healing, let me go back. There's basically two categories of things that a shamanic healing practitioner is doing. The first category is removing things that do not belong to the client. And I'll go back to that because that's where extraction healing comes in. The other category is returning things that do belong to the person, returning power that may have been lost. That's it. That's it. So, you know, as a Chinese medical practitioner, I was really happy about that because I only have to, you know. And also that it's not we as practitioners who decide what needs to be done. We may be full of opinions, and we may have had experiences that have shown us that certain things tend to need this or that. And it's really important to discipline ourselves, to not be the ones who make those decisions. That's up to our helping spirits. So every one of any shamanic practitioner will always consult their helping spirits about what things need to be done. So in the category of things that need to be removed, I'm going to talk about this stuff called intrusions. Okay? Intrusions is the shamanic name for, and this is hard to describe, I'll do my best. Okay. For, I call them like spiritual fragments that can lodge in our bodies and cause illness and pain, localized illness and pain. That's the main thing that happens. We learn in the extraction healing workshop, we learn how to locate these, how to remove them safely, and how to restore the person's power. That's the nutshell version of this. So I'm guessing that your next question might have to be with, well, how do you get these things? Right? Are they just floating around?
That's a great question. Where do they come from?
Where do they come from?
What brings them to you?
Exactly.
What makes you attractive to them lodging in your body?
Right. So, first of all, Yeah, in a way, they are sort of just floating around. I know that sounds creepy and weird, but it's not. It's just that in old cultures, and I think you can read about this in Michael's work, Cave and Cosmos. There's a wonderful section about this. But in some indigenous cultures, extractions were actually purposefully sent by sorcerers in order to harm people. That's not usually what happens in modern Western culture. The kind of clients that come to us, that's not usually how intrusions invaded them. It's more likely that these things come from poorly managed emotional conflict, I want to say.
That's a great way to put it.
From being around carelessly managed emotional conflict, I think. So examples, for instance, you're in a contentious meeting at work with several people, and they're at each other's throats, and they all disagree, and somebody's yelling, and somebody's calling names, and you're really upset and really feel vulnerable, and you leave just feeling like really upset, right? That kind of emotional energy, when it's not managed properly and with respect, that can send these fragments like darts. They're like darts, emotional darts. That can send those fragments out into the world, and if you are vulnerable, and I'll say why in a minute, if you're vulnerable to that, they can literally lodge in your body. And then you find down the road, you can't figure out why you have this neck pain that won't go away, or something like that, right? And you do all the right stuff. You go to the chiropractor, and you go to the physical therapist, you do yoga, you do your stretches, you do your hot packs and herb rubs and all these things. None of it works, right? Because there's this intrusion there. So your shamanic practitioner might be able to find that and remove it. And then, all the things you're doing suddenly start working. So that's why. Now, what makes you vulnerable? This is an important thing about shamanic work in general. We have a kind of spiritual immune system, I like to call it, and that the pillars of that spiritual immune system are partly your own connection with your soul. Your soul is a spirit, and that soul needs to be vital in you. You need to have access to the full wattage, right, of your soul. So that's part of your spiritual immune system. And the other part is at least one connection with a helping spirit of your own, preferably a guardian spirit like a power animal. You need to maintain a strong relationship with that spirit. And those things, they protect you in the world, as we're going through this crazy middle world full of all kinds of pain and suffering and conflict. They provide a degree of protection, and I like to think of it as not that nothing bad will ever happen to you in life.
Right, life lessons still need to happen.
Lessons still need to happen. Your soul needs to go what it needs to go through for its own reasons here. But it does tend to provide a kind of resilience and a more of an ability to work through stuff and come out of it with the teachings you need, and to go on with your life without permanent damage, right? So that's what we're looking for. Now, all of us slip. All of us, I probably have intrusions right now.
You've been living your life.
I've been living my life, right?
Yeah.
So all of us have times when we're just low in energy or low in soul power or whatever it is. And boy, if you're sitting in a traffic jam when you're in that kind of state, and somebody flips you off or yells at you and screams at you or something like that, it's easy to have some intrusions and carry them around. But yeah, it's definitely worth seeing somebody now and then, a shamanic practitioner now and then, to make sure you get a tune-up and remove some of the
house
stuff.
cleaned. Yeah,
get the house cleaned. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And this is not the same as compassionate depossession. And
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about how they are different?
That's very important, and I know that you're going to be talking to our colleague Robbie Stauffer at some point about compassionate depossession.
Yep, I will.
Yeah, the spirits that influence us, that require compassionate depossession, are deceased spirits that have not transitioned and are somehow hanging around and influencing us and affecting our lives inappropriately. Those you cannot just extract and toss into the nearest body of water because they're sovereign souls.
Mm-hmm.
You need their permission.
Right.
And that can be complex when they're really interested in sticking around and in involving themselves in your life. That's a whole nother practice. The intrusions we're talking about are not conscious souls. They're just little fragments like darts. Mm-hmm. So it's okay to remove them and safely dispose of them. Without
They're not
permission.
sovereign beings. They don't have free will. They don't have a personality, possibly like your mug might.
Yeah, right. It's very different. It's very different. Yeah. Depossession is a very advanced practice.
Yes.
We teach it in the 3-year program, but we don't do it as a weekend workshop. It takes a lot of experience and mostly very, very strong relationships with your helping spirits, trusted relationships with your helping spirits. Yeah.
Building that capacity to hold power over time with the years of the 3-year program really make a difference there.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what happens, so the client has come in and extraction has been indicated, extraction has been completed, power has also been restored. What happens for them afterward? What happens for that client?
Well, it's, there's a lot of different scenarios that can unfold. The happiest one, from my point of view, is whatever they came in with that's bothering them, that they need help with, that slowly resolves. Mm-hmm. And that happens often. Extraction is very powerful that way. So that happens often. And I also, I want to add here, I think this is an okay time to do this, is that sometimes you get surprises.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure you've had those in your practice. But, and is it okay now to give you an example of this?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. I had a client one time contact me out of the blue. She found me, I guess, somehow on the website or something like that. And she wrote an email to me. She said, I really need a soul retrieval. And that we get this a lot of the time. It's like, the bubble over my head is, I'm not a vending machine. But that's what they know. That's what they know about mostly, right, because they've read about it, and she described to me.
They identify with soul loss or loss of power in some way.
Totally, yep. I get that. So, and if it brings them in, that's great. So she described to me how she had just ended a very difficult relationship. Her heart was broken, and she could not move on. She was just really couldn't function very well and could not move on. And it had been a while. So I got back to her, and as I always do, I said, I do provide soul retrieval when the spirits tell me that that's what is recommended. But I need you to know that there are other healing modalities that we do, and I always ask my spirits, what is appropriate for you? Is that okay with you? She's, sure, bring it, she says. So I made the appointment. And I was thinking soul retrieval. To see, we humans, we have our opinions, right? But I was thinking, oh, yeah, it does sound like a soul retrieval is necessary here. But I did my little journey, and I checked in with my helping spirits, and they said, this person needs extraction healing. I said, what? I had the gall to question my helping spirits. I said,
are you sure?
Yeah, are you sure? That's what I did. I said, you sure? Because, I always think, pain and dysfunction, physical pain, that stuff. They said, they kind of rolled their eyes at me first, like, when are you going to start listening to us? And I said, okay, I hear you. Let's do it. So I did extraction healing for this person. And there's no point in going into actually what that looks like. That doesn't matter. But I did the work, and there was stuff to extract, right? And then I returned some power, not in the form of soul retrieval, but you always return some power after you do extraction, just so you don't leave them too open.
Right.
Sent her on her way. The work is done. Sent her on her way. And then I didn't hear from her for 6 months go by. And I thought, well, I guess that was a failure, right? And I was thinking about seeing if I could track her down. But and then all of a sudden I get an email from her. And she says, I'm sorry I didn't get right back to you, but my life has just been a whirlwind of I met this wonderful, my soulmate. I met my soulmate, and we've been traveling together. And I'm so glad that I broke up with this other thing, because this is my soulmate for life, and I'm so happy. And I just want to let you know. And that was this huge lesson to me, right? This huge lesson that you never know what might come of this kind of thing, and always trust your helping spirits when they tell you this is what somebody needs.
Right.
You better listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's exactly what she needed. It sounds like a wonderful healing.
Yeah. It was all emotional. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're right. Those emotions. Intrusions can come from ourselves.
Yes, I've seen that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Self-criticism.
Mm-hmm.
That voice that puts you down constantly, and that can cause intrusions. I've seen that, right? I've seen that happen,
Yep.
So
removed with the same process,
right?
But, and oftentimes when you're doing the work, unless your helping spirits are sharing that detail, it's just however it shows up for you, whatever senses you use as the practitioner, they're moved on.
Yep.
But it is quite interesting how much of that you can be the generator.
Yes, that's true. That's true. For sure.
So when a student is taking this course, what can they expect to have happen for them?
Well, a couple of important things. One is that, and I want to return to this confidence issue, because I remember I started with my own lack of confidence around it. One of the most important things about taking this workshop is a deepening of your own connection with your helping spirits. You cannot do this work without real clarity and trust in your own helping spirits. In fact, the work is done merged. Mm-hmm. And you people who are just listening didn't see my little quote fingers going like this, merged. Okay. With a helping spirit, and that's why it's so safe to do. Mm-hmm. You're merged when you do this work with a helping spirit. But we spend a good part of the first day of this workshop offering different exercises for you to build your power. And which way works best for you to build your power? How do you know when you are filled with your helping spirit's power? This is really crucial. None of this stuff works without the spirits being here. None of it works. You can know the methodology so clearly, but if you don't have your spirit's power here, it's not going to be effective. So that's the first thing that's going to happen for students in this workshop. They're going to really get that, I hope. Okay.
Yes.
And then I think that then it's a matter of learning through practicing different methods of sensing, seeing, how to locate, and how to remove. And we give some examples of how to do this. But you really, this is your chance to sort of get it how it works for you, right?
Right.
How it works for you, and then to begin to trust that. That's really important. And I think that with respect to confidence, I will tell you that what happened for me is that I went through this whole thing, and I was working with a teacher I've worked with for a really long time, and we were doing the job, but I confess that I had a little bit of that student syndrome of, am I making this up? And because I had that experience, it makes me very empathetic to people who are doing this work. It's a common issue.
Very
right?
common.
And so I took it to, I journeyed about it. That's what, that's a smart thing to do as a shamanic. I journeyed about it. And my helping spirit said, well, you need a specialist to do this work with you. I went, oh, all right. Will you introduce me to one? And off we went, and we found this specialist spirit. And the minute I started working with the specialist spirit, the whole thing just lit up for me and became absolutely real. And I completely trusted what was going on. It was an amazing shift for me. And it's interesting because this spirit does not talk to me, does not consult with me, doesn't do anything else but extraction, right? And so indeed, when I'm doing my divination about what do we need to do for this client, when this spirit just presents himself right in front of me in the journey, I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing extraction. Yeah, exactly. There's one other thing I should say about the in-person version of this workshop, which is that we provide, and you just can't do this online. We provide a little bit of a touch of what it's like to have community support for your work, right? This is
true.
Really special. In a lot of indigenous shamanic cultures, there wasn't this one-on-one thing that we do in this culture. It's like a one-on-one practice, and it was more like the whole community, the whole village came to support the healing, and that was common, right? Well, we don't have that experience typically. So we provide a little bit of that in this workshop, where we have part of the group basically drumming and singing for the other part of the group, and then they trade around. So it's a profound experience. What happens?
It really is.
Yeah,
couldn't agree more.
yeah. It's really pretty amazing. Yeah.
So after a student has completed this workshop, they come home. What do you think they should do next?
Well, I think that everybody should feel free to practice. You just got to practice this stuff, and don't be too shy about it. At first, I'm going to assume that some of these people have already practiced things like a little power animal retrieval, because they've had the way of the shaman, they've had the initial workshop, they know that. And you kind of, at first, I think you practice with friends and family. And just keep at it, and offer that. It's not like you're going to hang a shingle necessarily right off the bat and start charging huge prices for this work, but you definitely have to practice. And I tell people, don't hold back from that. Just see if you can find a few friends, whatever, to work with. You want to try this stuff out. The more you make yourself available and your intention clear to the helping spirits, the more they'll show up for you. They're like, oh, let's help her, right? Or him.
And so connecting with classmates so that you can practice on Zoom
absolutely
for free afterwards.
Great idea. Yeah, just keep doing it. And then also journey to your trusted helping spirits that you already work with, and journey them and ask, how can I get better at this work? Right? How can I be more effective at this work? And they'll give you things that are personal for you, that work for you. Yeah.
And that is part of the workshop, and one of the journeys to repeat.
Yes,
it's really reviewing the work and growing your understanding of the work itself, which is a really phenomenal part of the workshop.
Well, and also I think take these workshops over and over again if you can, right? It's not like a college course where you tick that box off, I took that, and now I don't need to worry about that anymore. You just keep coming back. Every time you're in circle with people doing this work, you grow in the work and you deepen in the work. And I would say this even to people who don't see themselves as healers necessarily. Just come to all the workshops. It doesn't matter, you know, because you'll find your spirits will give you more depth and more connection and more of what you need, no matter where you're going with your practice.
That's true. And with each faculty member, you end up getting different stories, getting different experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
And that, you know, obviously your helping spirits are with you regardless of whose circle you're sitting in, but there is something about getting that information so it resonates with you, because your lived experience through your life up to this point today is unique to you.
Yeah.
So just like people, you know, others who've had experiences with traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong, those folks can resonate with your experiences. And that's really important, which is why we do like to highlight a little bit in these workshops what people also do in their life besides shamanism.
Yes, right. That's so true. Good, yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Narrye. I'm so glad to have had you on, and I look forward to having you on again in the future. If you'd like to learn more about Narrye's practice or taking classes with Narrye, or about this workshop or any other workshop on the Foundation's page, check us out at shamanism.org.
Thank you so much, Carrie. What a pleasure.
Thank you.